Welcome to Sound Tesla. If this is your first time here, welcome. If not, welcome back. Today, I've definitely wanted to talk a little bit about something, and it's strictly in my opinion. I really hope that everybody kind of understands that. But I would love to know your input as well on it. And the topic of today, as you guys can see by the title, is the world ready for autonomy? I think it's a topic I wanted to really get into. I really want to discuss. It's going to be a little bit of a longer video than what I usually put together, but I want to go through some of the fine points of autonomy. And this is one of those things that has been coming up more and more. I talk to a lot of people about this, and a lot of people are asking me questions about this. Obviously, with me owning a Tesla, this is something that I don't necessarily, I understand why people ask these questions, but I think it's also really important to kind of say, well, there's a lot to be said when it comes to autonomy. And my car, for example, I never bought FSD. I bought Enhanced Autopilot, which was I guess a lower version of full self-driving, if you will. It just basically comes with all the options, just not the full package. But that being said, obviously I got to use a big chunk of the autonomous features that Tesla offers. I think there's a lot to be said when it comes to autonomy, and people are very curious about autonomy, but that's both a good thing and a bad thing. Obviously, curiosity is not a bad thing. What is a bad thing, however, is how people might perceive it. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. How you perceive it, how your grandparents perceive it, how your kids will perceive it. Autonomy itself is broken down into 5 levels. And I have a few videos about the 5 levels of autonomy. Put it this way, number 5 is basically where you don't even need a steering wheel. But we don't have level 5 autonomy today. Tesla is, I think the majority of the people will agree Tesla is definitely leading the industry as far as how, true self-driving systems work. I know that there's a lot of people talking about stuff like Waymo or, some of the other ones that are out there. You have to remember that a lot of the stuff that's out there is geofenced in a sense that it's kind of like how you can buy a basic little, toy car, if you will, and train it to go around your house in each room, and it maps everything. Well, that's basically the only other option that's available aside from Tesla, which is more of a visual cue. It relies heavily on visual real-life scenarios. And that being said, I think it's one of the reasons you hear a lot of people talking about Tesla is by far ahead of everyone else. And I will not disagree. I think Tesla is severely ahead of everyone else. But when it comes to my question, which is the world ready for autonomy? I think it comes down to 2 real key parts to that. On one hand, the world at large, I don't think is ready for it. But then there are those people who like to see the advancements of technology. They like to see the advancements of society. And they are more hopeful that this is going to happen. And to a degree, I am hopeful that this is going to happen. In many ways, I am both not ready and ready for autonomy. Where I think we run into a problem is today, more and more people, the more people we have on this planet, and as the population grows, I find that with more people on the roads, there's also a lot that really can go bad. People don't know how to drive. People don't pay attention to driving. Distracted driving is a huge issue. And even though there's laws in place for it, and many places around the world don't have any laws in place for distracted driving, but I would say a good chunk of it do. And even those who have those laws in place, I don't see a big enough improvement to say that I don't see it. I see it every single day where there's somebody distracted. Every single day. I have yet to, drive from point A to point B on any given day that I'm not seeing somebody on their cell phone, doing their makeup, eating, doing some of the craziest things. That brings us to autonomy, or at least perceived autonomy. With when it comes to Teslas, it's a perceived autonomy, and it's not. It really isn't autonomy. It is more like a driver's assistant or a driver's aid currently. And although it's used, I guess the majority of your drive, you can perceive it as autonomy. I can go great distances, especially when we go on road trips, get on a highway. I can go ridiculous distances where the car is literally driving. I don't need to interfere with the car. I don't need to worry about what the car is doing. Autopilot does an amazing job doing everything it needs to do. But there's a great deal of people who take that as or perceive it or see it as autonomy, and it's nowhere near it. So this can cause a lot of problems. There's plenty of stuff in the news regarding, a guy falls asleep at the wheel, or, people do stupid things. But this is also where I think the world is not ready for autonomy, because in order for us to get to autonomy, we have to get through a testing stage, a transition stage from, you being in 100% control of your vehicle to you giving up certain aspects of control to eventually giving up a big chunk of control to eventually giving up all of your control. And this is more of a psychological thing. People have to be aware, right? And people are not aware of their surroundings today, walking down the street, much less in a vehicle. And so when it comes to people, they don't always look at the information. I go back to talking to people a lot about instruction booklets. How often do you truly read an instruction booklet? You're gonna go out and buy a new iPhone. Do you read all the things that comes with it? It clearly states a lot of usable information, but you're not gonna read it. The same reason people don't read any disclaimers these days. People are very rushed to just do rather than think and go through the process of learning something. Most people want to learn after something has gone wrong or while something is going wrong. When it comes to vehicles on the road, this is a dangerous thing. When it comes to autonomy, this is a dangerous thing. And semi-autonomous vehicles, such as Teslas, which I would consider to be semi-autonomous. Like I said, I can go hours without interfering with the car. And semi-autonomous vehicles cause a very dangerous problem in some people's minds, because if your vehicle, you can imagine this happening where your vehicle is great, for 80% of your trip, 90% of your trip, 99% of your trip. You get complacent, you get too relaxed, you get mesmerized by what your vehicle is doing, and eventually you run into a problem where that 1%, that one tiny second when you're supposed to be paying attention, you didn't. And that's when things go wrong. And that wipes out 99% of the great things that the car has done because of that 1%. But just like with Elon Musk, that's kind of where my worry is the 1%, is that edge case where people become so complacent that they stop paying attention. They stop using the systems as a aid, and they start relying on the system to do everything for them. Is the world ready for autonomy? No. Is the world ready for semi-autonomy? No. In fact, the world isn't even ready at this point to be driving the vehicles that are on the road. You're looking at vehicles that are capable of doing absolute insane speeds. You look at Bugattis, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, whatever car you want, right? And there are so many people that are able to, one way or another, afford some of these hypercars, supercars, that have ridiculous acceleration, ridiculous top speeds. And people don't know how to handle this stuff. You don't have a licensing system, an infrastructure in this world of ours that really gives you the ability to use these vehicles for the way they're built, in a sense. But you also don't have the skill level, taught to the people. And I've said this numerous times before, the licensing, giving license to people is a privilege, in my opinion. You shouldn't be taking advantage of the privilege and saying, well, you know what, I have the money, I can buy whatever vehicle I want, despite the fact that I'm aware, hopefully aware that you don't have the skills to handle these vehicles. I see constantly every single day here in Vancouver, where I live, where people have some crazy supercars, before the age of 20. They don't even know how to date a girl, but they can drive a $200, $400 million car down a highway and crash, So there should be a limit. There should be a limit or a testing limit to driving, right? You shouldn't be able to buy very, very ridiculously powerful vehicles if you don't have the skills for that vehicle. And this, I think, applies to how autonomy is going to work in the future for us, or how it should work for all of us. The skills of the vehicle, or the autonomous vehicle, has to be heavily regulated, because the one thing you can count on, the guaranteed 100%, the one thing you can count on is people's complacency. People become complacent. That's human nature. We become complacent. When something becomes somewhat repetitive, not repetitive, somewhat repetitive, we become complacent. That's just the way it is. And that causes a danger for everybody. Not just for the person who becomes complacent, but rather for every single person out there who in many ways comes across this particular person or these types of people. Complacency is a very dangerous thing. And with autonomy coming into our world in one form or another, I think this is going to cause a great deal of problems for all of us in the future. It's going to cause a great deal of accidents. More than likely, insurance rates are going to go up if this continues. And, these products are being sold as an aid, but because the vehicles can do so much, it's basically selling itself as a replacement for you. And I've seen this happen with a lot of people, and I think to a degree even to myself at the very beginning, where I almost looked at autopilot as a holy smokes, I really, really don't have to do too much. Now, I have the skill for me to drive these vehicles, and I've never become so complacent. I still don't become complacent. I still pay 100% attention to what I'm doing on the road, or what my car, I should say, is doing on the road. Because when I go out there and I drive, I don't let the car do everything. I pay attention to everything. And this is despite the fact that something like a Tesla, which is monitoring everything 360 degrees around my vehicle, it's seeing things that even I don't see. And yet, I still will not allow myself to become complacent. Now, if you have that type of mentality, I think there's a wonderful future for us, all of us, for autonomy. I think we can advance autonomy with this, and we can absolutely allow these kind of things to happen. Well, currently, Teslas are going through a beta testing and a early access program, if you will, where certain people are given the right to test these cars. Mind you, they paid for that. They paid a good chunk of money to have this option available to them, so they can go out there and basically be beta testers. And currently, Elon Musk, said that yes, they're going to broaden this the amount of people that are doing these testing currently on the new FSD beta. My issue with this comes to what kind of steps does Tesla take to see who should be allowed to do FSD testing? And not only Tesla, but in the future, any other manufacturer. Currently, Tesla is obviously the one that's, the big one that's doing this. So that's mostly why we're talking about Tesla here. But that being said, what are the steps being taken? I would love to ask, Elon, if I could, or Tesla, what are your requirements? And by the way, I did ask. I've never gotten an answer. I've never gotten a real answer on this. And I think it comes down to, you have to decide in the future when you're putting a beta anything into the hands, especially a vehicle that is semi-autonomous or autonomous, when you're putting these tests out there to the public on public roads that's affecting thousands, tens of thousands of other people because of this one person doing beta testing, should there be signs on these vehicles? Should there be a sticker on the car saying, hey, listen, this vehicle is being beta tested for autonomous driving? Is this something that should be happening? And my answer is absolutely yes. I think even using autopilot, there should be a sticker you must put on your vehicle, a little badge or something that says, listen, we are in a process of beta testing this vehicle, because frankly, that's what you're doing. And nobody around you knows this. I know when I'm on autopilot and somebody is passing by, I'll wave to them, or my hands are not 100% on the wheel all the time. I might rest my hands on it. But when people realize, like, holy, wait, the car is driving. Well, yes, but there's an interesting reaction to this. Every vehicle that's out on the road on a semi-autonomy testing on a beta system should be required to, I guess, in a way, notify everyone else around them that this vehicle is being beta tested. But furthermore, I think when vehicles become autonomous, it should be displaying the fact that this is an autonomous vehicle, and let everyone else know what is going on. A really good example of this is if you take today's, let's say FSD. So there's a lot of FSD out there. There's quite a few FSD drivers right now who are beta testing the full self-driving system that Tesla has. And you can find them on YouTube. They're doing a great job, I think. But those cars don't drive like humans, right? They take their time. They make sure that the intersection is clear before they take a turn. They're slow to react to some cases. This causes a slight problem because the people who come up to these cars are not expecting this. They're not expecting you to take your time, because majority of the public will not take their time. They're quicker on the turns than the current systems, right? So the drivers of these vehicles kind of are taking this in stride. And I find there are a lot of these vehicles that, people don't know what's happening. Why is this person taking, an extra 4 or 5 seconds to take a left-hand turn when they really have no reason to? Or why is the vehicle a little bit more wobbly because, it's not perfect yet? None of these questions will come up if there was something to say, listen, this vehicle is being beta tested. At one point, I had a Tesla ahead of me where I knew that they were using autopilot. And the reason I knew is because the positioning of the vehicle on the road and how it was maneuvering. And I was right behind them. I was 100% sure that they were using autopilot. But for me, I think this is easy because I do the same thing. I test these cars all the time. I love testing my car. I love testing what my car is doing. I like to pay attention. So when I see another Tesla out there on autopilot or on navigate on autopilot, I know exactly what's happening. But the general public doesn't. And so having something to say to the general public, listen, this car is semi-autonomous, or this car is on autopilot, possibly being driven, self-driving. I think it's very important to notify the public, and I think it should be law at this point. And no different than if you have an EV vehicle, like in my case, in my car, or it doesn't really matter, an EV vehicle here in the city. In my province, for example, you're required to put a OK decal, right? So you can go on a HOV lane. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. But if your vehicle can have the ability to be autonomous or semi-autonomous, that has to be displayed on a vehicle, I think. And for Teslas, I think it's kind of a no-brainer because Teslas all come with autopilot at this point. And so they all have this partial self-driving feature. And So you'll think, okay, well, they're gonna have to put it on every car. Well, yes, they would, but you have to notify people. You can't just not do it. And as this technology is advancing, you have to really worry about making sure that you clarify what your vehicle is or is not doing. And for those of you who are beta testers out there, I highly encourage you to, even if it's not required, it is very inexpensive to get a custom magnet or, custom little decal made where just for you, put it on your car and something along the lines of full self-driving testing in progress or something like that. Trust me, other vehicles will appreciate it. And if I was to be a beta tester right now, for the current full self-driving, I would absolutely put a sticker like that on my own accord, not because it's required, but on my own accord. I would put something like that on my vehicle to make sure that people are aware that my vehicle is driving itself. Yes, I'm there, but I'm doing the testing. And the reason I keep saying the word testing is because all of this is in beta. Autopilot, Tesla's the autopilot system. Tesla's Navigate on autopilot and Tesla's full self-driving. All of these are still beta. And that means I have to be there nonstop, monitoring the system as if I was driving. It's a wonderful system. It really is. And like I said, 99% of the time it works perfect. But there are those edge cases where it doesn't. But even when it works perfect, it does certain things a certain way that the average human driver doesn't do. And so it can cause a bit of a confusion for other drivers. Well, okay, what happened there? Why is that person doing that? For a lot of people, the average human driver reacts to certain situations a certain way. And your average, autonomous vehicle or semi-autonomous vehicle reacts, trust me, in a very different way, in a noticeable way. And I don't think that's a problem. I think that's actually something that's really good. We have to be able to decipher the differences between a human driver and an autonomous vehicle, mostly because not all vehicles are going to be autonomous for many, many years to come. And until that doesn't happen, we have to be able to communicate with other drivers on the road, informing them that autonomy is happening beside them. Is the world ready for autonomy? Yes and no. But it's up to you to let me know what you think. Is the world truly ready for autonomy? And I am not necessarily talking about you. Are you ready for autonomy? But is the driver beside you ready for autonomy? And is autonomy ready for the world to coexist with it? And I think that's a very good question in itself, because when you're talking about autonomy, it's not just about whether or not a computer can drive, but is the rest of the world ready to have that computer drive alongside them? Is the rest of the world ready to see an autonomous vehicle and be okay with them being on the road? And it's kind of like accepting that new person to the group of friends. And that's really what this is. The world currently is doing their own thing on the road. All the human drivers are doing things, and there's this unspoken rule amongst all of us humans that we all understand, or at least attempt to. I know when somebody's wheel turns a little bit, or I see them doing certain things, I prepare and I am aware that they're about to do something. And it's this quiet little agreement that we all have, where we say, you know what, I know what you're doing, I got you, It's the same reason somebody's going to switch lanes a block ahead before they do, because it's the little tells that people have. Again, it's this understanding amongst humans that makes us all coexist on the roads. But eventually we have to accept, a new friend into our group. And that's autonomy. And we have to be willing to accept our computer friends, our AI, to a certain degree into our life, and we have to accept them into our community of drivers, into the community of, I guess, sharing the road. We all share the road, one way or the other. And I understand there's things like road rage. Well, how's that gonna be? Because there's a lot of people out there who have severe anxiety or severe anger issues who cause road rage, right? How are they gonna react to a vehicle with no driver? Or even worse, what's gonna happen if that person road rages against something not the driver did, but the computer did? Your car, not you. Your car might decide that a certain action is better than what we normally would do, which could enrage somebody in turn. And now the driver, who's absolutely not at fault here, the computer did decide the right decision, but road rage can happen. The question whether or not autonomy is ready for the world, or vice versa, is the world ready for autonomy? It works both ways. We have to accept that this is happening, and this is going to be happening, and it's up to us to kind of work together on figuring out how this is going to happen. I don't think I'm not saying that the governments have to set new standards. I'm not saying that there should be everything heavily regulated by the governments. I think this is a self-regulating system at this point, where we as the drivers, we as a community of drivers, have to come together and decide what is the right thing to do. What are some of the rules we should take, the steps that we should take to welcome autonomy into our life? And how can we welcome autonomy, just as we would welcome a new friend into a group? Like I said, you don't just kind of put them in their head first. You welcome them, you show them the way, you relax a little bit more, and you go, listen, welcome to the group, but in our friend, in this group, we don't do certain things, teach them. But we also want to learn about our new friend, and we want to accept the good and the bad that comes with having this new friend as part of a group. This is what we're doing here with autonomy, everybody. This is exactly what's happening now. We have to coexist, but in order to coexist, we need to have certain rules. And as I said, the very first rule that should start, immediately, should be a way for us to display on our vehicles. And I'm going to be doing this eventually. I would love to know how many of you guys are going to join me for this, but we need to be able to display on these vehicles, letting everyone else know, listen, this vehicle has autonomous capabilities. It may be driving on its own as we speak. At the very least, it's going to allow other people to say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna take it easy. The car does something weird. Okay, yeah, it's a computer doing it. Not necessarily, the computer might be blamed for a lot of stupid things that people do, but at the very least, we're giving options to other people. That is my true opinion. That is what I think should happen, and what I think needs to happen for autonomy to become better, stronger, and much more stable. We cannot welcome autonomy without having rules, but we also can't have the governments regulating these rules to the point of covering everything, over-regulating it and making it next to impossible to be used or understood. You are an individual, and us as individuals, us as the community of drivers out on the roads, it is up to us to take responsibility for our actions and take responsibility for the actions of our vehicles if we so choose to use the autonomy that comes with the vehicle. Ultimately, you are the driver. And until the day comes when you no longer have a brake pedal, a accelerator pedal, a steering wheel in a car, and all three basically, until that day, whoever is behind the wheel is still 100% responsible for the actions of that vehicle. I really need to stress that. Whether or not you agree with me, please leave me a comment in the comment section. Share this video with other like-minded people who are thinking about autonomy or who have autonomous or semi-autonomous vehicles, send it to Elon. Let's see what Elon has to say. Send it to Tesla. Send it to a lot of your friends and your family. And let's really get this information out there, because I think the time has come. We've moved far enough with the tech and the AI that something has to be done. And if we don't do something, things are going to get out of hand. That's just my opinion. With all that being said, I thank you so much for watching. If you got this far, you're a trooper. I truly respect each and every one of you out there. And if you're thinking about understanding how all of this is going to work, well, it's all up to all of us. The manufacturers are a small part of a bigger picture, right? But we are the big picture. Ultimately, we have to accept this kind of tech, and we have to help each other to make sure it all works properly. That all being said, everybody stay safe, drive safe, enjoy your vehicles, enjoy being out there. Just be safe.